That's how my first professional research career in Korea began, as a research professor. Although I had been appointed, the title itself was unfamiliar to me, and it seemed equally unfamiliar to many other researchers. During my student years, I don't recall such a position even existing. Perhaps it had only been introduced around that time. A research professorship was slightly different from a postdoctoral fellowship. Unlike a postdoc, the role allowed me to focus entirely on research, work as an independent researcher, and collaborate with scientists from other institutions or apply for my own research funding. On the other hand, it was a non-tenure track position, renewed annually based on the number of SCI papers published during the year, a harsh standard by any measure. Because of this, very few people stayed in the role for long. And since I had no real sense of how hard other research professors were working, my safest bet was to run multiple projects in parallel to publish as many papers as possible in a year. At least at my university, despite the professor title, I carried out all experiments and measurements myself without the help of students. This demanded both more time and more physical endurance. Still, I want to emphasize that this is only my personal experience. The authority, autonomy, and working conditions of research professors can vary widely, and it would be a mistake to generalize from my own case alone. Ever since I was a child, I had dreamed of becoming a scientist or an engineer. And with a bit of luck, and of course my own share of effort, I became one of those fortunate few who actually realized their childhood dreams as adults. There is one point I want to make absolutely clear throughout my life. I have drawn a sharp distinction between occupation, workplace, and position. When I was studying abroad, many of my younger Korean peers in the doctoral program told me their goal was to return to Korea and become professors after earning their PhDs. This was neither strange nor objectionable. It was a perfectly valid form of self-realization. Today, those peers have indeed become professors and are living that life with dedication. My own dream, however, was slightly different. My ultimate goal was to become a skilled researcher in carbon nanotubes and fuel cells. I believed that if my research produced results of genuine value, then a PhD would be granted as recognition. And if those results were deemed worthwhile outside academia, then an institution, be it a company, research center, or university, would offer me a place to work. In short, my dream was to be a professional researcher who could conduct independent research. My occupation was that of a scientist. My workplace became Korea University because the university evaluated my research accomplishments and gave me the opportunity to work there. And my position happened to be research professor, simply because that was the title the university assigned to me. A position can change whenever one's workplace changes, but one's occupation is a core identity that does not change with the workplace. This has been my guiding philosophy since my 20s. Whether people at Korea University, or in a company for that matter, chose to call me by one title or another was a matter of their own convenience. What mattered to me was something else entirely. In whatever workplace I found myself, how faithfully could I embody my professional identity as a scientist? From the way I've described my view of my profession, you may have already guessed. I genuinely love doing experiments and conducting research. Along with that passion, I have two rules that I always uphold as a researcher. The first is to avoid skipping meals just to keep working on an experiment. There's a slightly sad story behind this. Back when I was working as a researcher in industry, I once damaged my health by skipping meals to continue my experiments. Ever since then, even if stopping for a meal meant I might have to restart an experiment from scratch, I made it a rule to eat at the proper time. To be precise, if an experiment looked like it would run past mealtime, I would adjust the schedule so that I could eat at the appointed time without fail. The second rule is to keep important samples on my desk and observe them over time, 6 months, a year, however long it takes. And by important, I don't just mean the successful ones. In the course of experiments, sometimes a failed sample, one that didn't turn out as expected, can spark curiosity about how it might change over time. In Korea, it's common advice that if an experiment is going to take a long time, you should use that time to work on something else. From the standpoint of efficiency, there's nothing wrong with that approach. I myself worked that way for many years. But as I gained experience as a professional researcher, I came to realize deeply that observation itself is invaluable. Since then, even for experiments that take hours, I would pull up a chair right in front of the apparatus and watch intently, noting every change in the process. Careful observation reveals exactly when a shift occurs and how an experiment fails. That knowledge is what allows you to decide more precisely which variables to change in the next attempt. Most researchers, however, are too busy to simply sit and watch. Typically, they'll check in from time to time to see if things are going well. If they find the experiment has already failed, they stop it and plan the next run. This approach isn't necessarily wrong, but it does mean the chance of witnessing the failure process itself is very low. It's not easy for anyone to just sit for hours and watch an experiment unfold. I used to be the same way. But once I recognized the importance of observation, something changed. No matter how long an experiment took, watching it was never boring. You might not believe me, but you'll understand if you experience it yourself. And when I find failed samples that I think might still hold meaning, I put them on my desk and keep observing them over time.